Good evening. I'm Walter Isaacson. It's now the third time you've seen me, so maybe you'll start remembering my name. But welcome again to the Aspen Institute and to this wonderful dinner. The whole theme that Peter Reiling, I think having been a protege of Keith Berwick, learned was that not only do we have to have thought, but we have to turn thought into action. David Rubenstein said that again today, with the notion that just by having a great idea, if you don't execute on it, it's just a hallucination. This dinner is dedicated to the main thing that turns thought into action, which is the projects of people in our leadership network. Those projects have inspired me every year, and it makes us so proud of everybody we know here and what you all do. You know, Anne McNulty came up with this idea a few years ago of giving a prize in honor of her late husband for the best projects that have been done in any given year. And I was thinking about it when Michael Sandel was talking, because here it is, an economic incentive to do the best prize. But what Anne did was that the prize money actually goes to the project, actually goes to doing good. So if you ever take Professor Sandel's course, this is the way you get to square the circle, which is you get an economic incentive, and the incentive goes to the altruistic purpose that you are already pursuing. One of the people I truly admire who won this prize, because I'm from Louisiana and he's from Mississippi, and we count the Delta country of Mississippi as just sort of a suburb of New Orleans, is Bill Bynum. Because I believe that, there's so many people who have won this prize, but I will single him out, especially since I'm supposed to introduce him, which is that when he won this prize, it was doing something that I think is the most important moral, political, and economic issue of our time, which is making sure that everybody has an equal economic opportunity. And he's doing it by taking people who are unbanked or poorly banked in the Delta country of Mississippi. And after the hurricane with Jim Barksdale and others, he helped rebuild the state of Mississippi and tried to make it in as equitable of a manner as possible. When he won the award, I let out a big cheer, and so I'm going to invite him up to introduce Anne, and so that you can applaud Bill Bynum.
Good evening. Thank you, Walter. You know, around the Aspen Institute, I think from the first time that I met Keith Berwick, we were challenged to think about and talk about what it means to go from success to significance. You know, that's what the McNulty Prize has done for my organization. The grant itself had a huge impact. I could take $100,000 and use it to leverage $1 million to make loans in underserved communities across the Mid-South. And I've shown the McNulty Prize video to every donor that I could corner, and many family members that I didn't even know that I had. You know, but the added credibility, the exposure, and the well wishes that I received paled compared to the amazing support and encouragement that I've received from Anne McNulty, her family, Aprilage, and the team McNulty. The thing is, though, that it happened before I won the prize. You know, I know that many of you also have experienced incredible generosity and sincere and humble support from Anne and her family. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Anne, Bryn, Johnny, and Kevin McNulty for so graciously welcoming me and the entire Aspen Global Leadership Network into your extended family, and for allowing us to be a part of the great and inspiring legacy of John P. McNulty. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. I love the squaring the circle concept in this context. And thank you, Bill. We have loved engaging with you and figuring out ways to expand your influence around the country. And welcome to everyone here. I don't know how many of you were paying attention about an hour ago. Did you see the beautiful rainbow we had outside stretching from mountain to mountain? Anybody else, or you guys were all busy working? But I saw it, I thought it was amazing, and for me, a very good omen of what a wonderful evening we're going to have tonight. So I want to give a special shout out to our past laureates who are here: Jordan Castello, Bill Bynum, Amit Bhatia, Dele Olajede, Manoj Kumar, Anne Lamont, Adam Lowry, and Hildegard Veske. In addition, I want to recognize Margot Pritzker and Bill Mayer, both of whom, with some other trustees, are really part of the power behind the evaluation process. So they have, for many years now, worked with us on that. So Margot and Bill. And very importantly, I would like to recognize April Aj. She really is the force behind the prize. April worked with John originally and has been a friend of our family for the past 15 years and also is the head of our foundation. So many of you have or should have encounters with April. And lastly, I'm joined tonight by my beautiful and brilliant daughter, Bryn. Bryn has always been engaged with the prize, but this year has been more engaged than ever. And so I'm very happy to have her join me here tonight. Now, all of us, my sons, Johnny and Kevin, who couldn't be here tonight, along with Bryn, we love this process. We love this moment. We think that our prize, the John P. McNulty Prize, really pays tribute to all of you and to the impact that your work brings in your communities. Now, earlier this summer at the Aspen Ideas Festival, some of you may have heard David Brooks when he expanded on his vision on what it takes to build character and how to lead a life of greater depth. He focused on the resume virtues versus the eulogy virtues. And I think our group here tonight is probably unique in that everyone here in this room knows both types of virtues and has probably struggled to figure out how to balance them. The resume virtues are the things we all strive for, the educational accomplishments, the career successes, the things which lead us to power, fame, and fortune. The eulogy virtues, on the other hand, are about how we have helped others, about our courage in dealing with suffering and dealing with setbacks, about doing good and being good. So how do we all balance these two different parts of our natures? We recognize that we don't know where or when our eulogy will be read, but we do know that we hope it says we made a difference. When I was thinking about my remarks for tonight, I remembered David's talk, and I was thinking about how John embodied both resume virtues and eulogy virtues. He did have a great resume. You know, the first child of immigrants, his dad was a landscaper. His mom's first job was actually as a housekeeper for a Wall Street banker. So rising from that modest beginning to become a senior partner at a leading Wall Street firm was really dramatic. The rise from a row house in Southwest Philadelphia to a beautiful office overlooking the Statue of Liberty was really amazing. And John himself was delighted and humbled by what he saw as his luck. But it wasn't just luck, though clearly there was some luck. But it was ambition, and it was hard work, and it was striving, and it was a strong competitive nature. From the time he was a youngster, organizing his brothers and the other kids in the neighborhood to pull a wagon through the streets collecting cans and bottles to return them for deposit money. And most of you are probably far too young to even envision that that ever happened, but it did. To many years later, running a global enterprise, he was always energetic, exciting, and occasionally a irascible force. Throughout his whole life, he looked for ways to solve problems, ways to create opportunities. And he also rejoiced in helping others grow, others learn and succeed. He not only had the resume virtues, but I think he had the eulogy virtues in that he loved engaging with all kinds of people. He was always intensely interested in who they were, what was going on in their lives, that he cared about them, that he wanted them to succeed. And this is whether it was young people who worked for him, whether it was his security guards asking about their families, or whether it was his dentist that he was asking about how exactly he was going to expand his practice. Ultimately, like many of you, John made a decisive change. He decided to leave Wall Street at age 49 to spend more time with his family, including racing bikes here in Aspen with his competitive daughter, Bryn, and also to invest his time in more hands-on philanthropy. For instance, he had always been a big supporter of education at every level, but after he left his job, he would sit down with Sister Deborah, the principal of a Catholic grade school in Chinatown, and figure out different ways to market the school to bring in more of the newly arrived Chinese immigrant children. And then he would also sit down with the children and talk about their hopes and ambitions. So John, after he left at age 49, he spent the next 4 years of his life, which were the last 4 years of his life, engaged in these kind of missions. So our prize honors John in a way that recognizes his extraordinary leadership abilities and his enthusiasm for mentoring the next generation, and his balance in the long run of the resume and eulogy virtues. Those of us who knew John as a high school sweetheart, as a husband, as a father, as a partner, as a mentor, as a friend, know that he made a dramatic difference in many lives. And we know that many of you are striving for the same balance, that you have already achieved astounding career successes, but you are now also keenly focused on wisdom, caring, service, and making a dent in the universe. So we are now ready to inspire you with a video throwback to the virtue of our previous laureates and the announcement of this year's McNulty Prize laureate.
Well, I've put everything I've had at stake. There is no room here to fail. And if I was to fail, there'll be no place to hide.
People said that it was impossible. And when you show that the impossible is possible, you inspire people to take further action.
Me di cuenta que de nada me servía ser una periodista muy exitosa si no estaba dejando parte de mi liderazgo al servicio de una comunidad que lo necesitaba.
My quest is to make sure that people, regardless of their situation in life, have the same opportunities that anyone else has.
When people are taking their brilliance and creativity and applying it to solve problems that affect people at the most basic level, that's making a fundamental, lasting, sustainable difference in the world. So isn't that incredible and inspiring? Just a wonderful, wonderful group. We are very pleased to have 2 of our 5 laureates with us tonight, and we will meet them in a moment. As you can imagine, the process of selecting the laureates isn't easy. The jury looks at creativity, we look at impact, we look at scalability and sustainability. And now I would like to invite to the stage 2 very special guests who serve on our jury for picking the winner of the McNulty Prize, Madam Secretary Madeleine Albright and Olara Otunnu. Is Olara here or no? Oh, there you go, good. Olara has contributed so much in terms of prevention of mass violence. 40 years ago, he was a powerful student leader in Uganda who recognized what Idi Amin was doing and who spoke out. He went on to be an international spokesman, statesman who served as UN Undersecretary General and envoy for children in armed conflict. And he now leads a foundation devoted to promoting opportunities for children from conflict regions. After decades abroad, including in New York, Olara returned to Uganda 4 years ago to lead the Uganda People's Congress and to challenge the incumbent president. He is still leading the opposition there, and we are incredibly lucky to have him here with us tonight. We are also very proud to have Madam Secretary Albright here with us tonight, who has honored us by serving as a judge for most of the years of the prize. As you know, she is a well-known Czech-born diplomat, famous not only for her pathfinding role as the first female U.S. Secretary of State, but also for her considerable gifts as an author and as a professor now at Georgetown, but also for her continuing wisdom and her very forthright approach to issues. Many of you may have missed it, but last Sunday on Face the Nation, she told Bob Schieffer, quote, "To put it mildly, the world is a mess." She went on to address the many current crises the world is facing, especially, of course, in Ukraine and in the Middle East. So we are honored to have Secretary Albright with us as well.
And thank you very much, Olara. It's always terrific to be with you. I'm delighted to be here. The world is a mess, but not in Aspen, where there are brilliant people being chosen to make a difference. And I so enjoyed hearing about John and what a remarkable person he was. But I have to tell you, I'm just overwhelmed by you. You are a remarkable person. You are truly the spirit behind the prize. You are the person that has kept us all on track, who has been completely dedicated to the whole concept of the prize, obviously to your husband's memory, to your children, and I'm so thrilled that we have become friends through the Aspen Institute, through our being together in the executive seminar, playing our sisters in our Greek roles. But I really am deeply moved by everything that you have done, because you are the one that has made sure that the process goes forward. You have dedicated yourself to it, and I'm honored to be a part of this. I have to say, now comes the hardest part, which is being a judge. And just listening to, having read the material and then seeing the video, I think that you can all understand that the hardest job for all of us is going to be choosing the winner. But I would like to say, just being a finalist and a laureate, I hope you all that are in this category consider yourselves as winners, because we do. So thank you very, very much.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming. I'm really thrilled to be here today. As you've heard, this prize holds a very special place in our hearts. I know that my father would be in awe of the leaders that we celebrate. He would also be overjoyed that his name is associated with those of you who are changing the world. And to echo Secretary Albright's words, I think he would be annoyed and shocked that my mom's name is not also on it herself because of the work that she has done. We are very excited to announce this year's laureates, two of whom, as you know, are here with us tonight. In a moment, they will expand on the issues that they are tackling in person and on video, for those of us who could not be here in wonderful Aspen tonight. First, after leaving her successful career as a senior economist and asset manager, Réjane Woodroffe turned her attention to a rural region in South Africa that had been completely cut off from the rest of the country for decades. They were living without roads, without running water, and without very basic services. The Bulungula Incubator acts as a catalyst to enable communities to solve their own problems, to create sources of income, to integrate new technologies, and to obtain the infrastructure they so desperately need. Here on the screen from South Africa is Réjane Woodroffe.
The area in which the project's located is in a remote rural part of South Africa that was designated a black homeland under apartheid. Because it was a black homeland, it had many challenges in that there was no school, no functioning school, no access to healthcare, no access to clean drinking water, widespread unemployment, high rates of illiteracy. And because of this, we decided to take an integrated approach to our development strategy, one which looked at all aspects of education, healthcare, job creation, micro-enterprise development, and provision of water and access to electricity, which meant that we had many projects in a concentrated area rather than one project across many areas. And we now use the lessons learned and the work that we've done and the successes that we've had in one area to replicate in other areas such as ours.
Next, El Salvador has been plagued with truly brutal gang violence for decades. In order to combat these pervasive issues, retail manufacturing executive Arturo Segura launched Prieto País, which engages youth in sports and leadership training. Through primarily soccer, boys and girls from these violent, fractured communities are crossing deeply entrenched gang lines. Soccer has created a bond amongst the young and a common ground for all members of the community, including parents and business leaders, so that they can peacefully coexist. Here from San Salvador is Arturo Segura.
Fellow from El Salvador. Here we go, got the mic up. I'm a Cali fellow from El Salvador. In 2009, I founded Prieto País to address a rise of systemic violence and crime in El Salvador. Our country has one of the highest murder rates in the world. So we decided to replace violence with opportunities and choice. 18-year-old Jose from a small town called Izalco came from a troubled past. He had a broken family, bad conduct at his school, and he was in constant fights with fellow students. And now I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to go to Plan B here. Our project, Prieto País, has given Jose a leadership role as team of his soccer team. He has also had the opportunity to learn and practice values through sports, where he now sees his other players and respects them, whereas before he was always punching him in the face and being very violent. And he's also had the opportunity to engage his father, who wasn't very present in his life. And he took his father from the stands onto the field, where he's now the coach and team representative. That is why we created Proyecto País, which is a community-based crime prevention and youth development model, which is empowering 6,500 youth at risk, like Jose, who are developing values, leadership, and peaceful coexistence skills and culture. And we will continue this effort until El Salvador no longer has one of the highest murder rates in the world. Thank you.
Development expert Lena Abu-Hijle made plans to be here tonight, but was compelled to stay back and address the escalating crisis in the Gaza Strip. Lena's Youth Local Council promotes a new values-based generation of political leaders who are focused on breaking the cycle of violence. To date, over 7,000 Palestinian teens have organized to run their own elections, to work with local constituents, and to execute community improvement projects. On the screen from Ramallah with us tonight, Lena Abu-Hijle.
Hello, my name is Lena Abu-Hijle and I'm the country director for global communities in the West Bank and Gaza. Palestinian youth constitute the overwhelming majority of the population. They are oppressed due to the continued occupation of the country and marginalized by their societies with few opportunities for them to engage in their community affairs and governance. Our youth local councils engage thousands of Palestine's youth, building their capacity, giving them a voice and a platform to respond to their community needs. Today, the movement truly belongs to the youth of Palestine, helping create the positive change we aspire for our country and the region. Dedicated council members, including young women, are leading their communities. They are working hard to realize their dreams of a better future based on freedom, justice, moderation, and all the great values we believe our country should be based on. Despite the pain and agony that prevails today, I'm bringing to you and the world a message of hope and peace from Palestine's youth. Help them realize their dreams, as brighter futures start with empowering today's youth. Thank you.
Years before the Bring Back Our Girls campaign and Boko Haram thrust Nigeria's issues onto the world stage, prominent human rights attorney Miriam Uwais and her Issa Wali Empowerment Initiative were very hard at work. In dangerous and remote parts of Nigeria, where even today bombs exploded, Miriam is a crusader for the basic rights of women, many of which we take for granted, through literacy, health, community leadership, and income generation education. Here with us tonight from Nigeria, Miriam Uwais.
Thank you very much. I'm vertically challenged, so it has to be brought down. The story is told of a teacher in the northern part of Nigeria who asks a classroom full of girls what they want to be when they grow up. A girl puts up her hand and answers, "I want to be alive." That response summarizes the situation in northern Nigeria, where, as you may be aware, 219 girls are still missing, having been abducted from their school 107 days ago. But even before the insurgency, poverty and culture have militated against the aspirations of a girl for a better life. For the parent, child marriage is preferred because this has always been about one less mouth to feed, plus the bonus of a goat as an immediate benefit. Child marriage and early birth often occur before the age of 15, which portends danger for the girl. Today in Nigeria, a mother dies giving birth every hour, not to talk about the deprivations of education, malnutrition for both mother and child, as well as the debilitating incidence of VVF that happens to girls who give birth with immature pelvises. To break this never-ending cycle of poverty, IWE, which is Isa Wali Empowerment Initiative, has focused on changing mindsets through advocacy and imparting knowledge directly in the spheres of health, empowerment, and security awareness in our rural communities. In 2013 alone, we impacted on almost 7,000 women, 900 children, and 700 men. Most importantly, we have improved livelihoods, we have raised awareness, and we have instilled self-confidence. Thank you.
Advocates for the world's most rare diseases often feel like their causes are left in the wake of more common, or for pharmaceutical companies, more profitable diseases. Through Global Genes, biotechnology engineer John Crawley has united groups advocating for over 7,000 rare diseases into one common cause. Global Genes campaigns on behalf of rare diseases to government and industry. It supports patients and families, and it promotes new avenues of research. John is currently on Navy Reserve duty, but is here tonight on the screen.
The problem that we saw in the rare disease community was really threefold. First, a lack of awareness that there are over 7,000 of these rare disorders that globally affect hundreds of millions of people. A lack of effective advocacy. And finally, that no single organization existed to represent the needs of all patients and families living with rare disorders. I think the reason for this problem was pretty straightforward, and that's that given the fractured nature of this community, that each family was uniquely focused on their own rare disease. So the solution that we created was to form a new umbrella organization called the Global Genes Project. And at Global Genes, what we seek to do is first to educate and build awareness. Second, to collaborate and empower, and we do this by sponsoring patient advocacy seminars, webinars, providing rare disease toolkits to families. And finally, we foster innovation. And we do all of this to provide hope to the community, because hope, it's in our genes.
So I can't tell you how much fun it is for us to honor my dad through the McNulty Prize tonight more than ever, because you are who this prize is about. So it's just like a big party celebrating all the work that my mom and April and all of you have done. We love investing in young leaders around the world who share the same energy, enthusiasm, and commitment to excellence that my father did. The prize will be awarded in November in New York, and we would love to see all of you there with us. In the meantime, we urge you to continue to support one another, to celebrate in each other's success, and to challenge each other to continue to improve. I would now like to invite Peter Reiling to the stage, along with the 2013 winner of the McNulty Prize, Bill Bynum, and this year's laureates, Miriam Uwais and Arturo Segura, for a brief conversation. Thank you.
Welcome. Excellent. We on? We're on. Good. Well, let me just add, Anne, thank you again so much to you and your family for making this possible. We're here at the Action Forum. We're talking about action, and what better way to celebrate action than have an opportunity to visit with these folks up here on stage with me And I'm so impressed that we were able to get our other laureates up on the screen, so I feel like they're right here with us. Here's what we're going to do for about the next half hour. I want to have a conversation, and I'll have a conversation with you guys. And what I want to talk about is not just the what you're doing and how you're doing it, but why you're doing it and how you're actually able to get it done, given everything else you have going on in your lives. And I want to do that because when I look around the room here, we have all sorts of people here. We have some people who are hearing about your work for the very first time and would like to understand, to dig in a little deeper into what it is you're doing. We also have a lot of fellows here in the room from the Aspen Global Leadership Network, and they're in sort of two camps. Some of them are alumni, some of them, and they're in two camps. Some of them launched projects as part of their fellowship. Others tried and didn't go as they hoped it would. And of course, they're here because they're at the Action Forum thinking about how to make a new action pledge and something they might do. But they're always struggling with how on earth can I get this done, given everything I have going on in my life. I'm so busy. They're struggling with that. There are others who carried out projects and were quite successful. But they're here at the Action Forum again because they're trying to think what they might do, and they're looking for where will the inspiration come from? How am I going to figure out where to focus my time? We have new fellows who are here. I look over at some of our China fellows sitting over here who are still, in some cases, struggling to figure out, especially from the newest class of China fellows, what's their project going to be? And so I think they draw inspiration from you all as well, and I want to ask some questions about not just everything that's gone well, but what you wish you'd known when you first came up with your project idea and what you might have done differently. And of course, we have many other people attending the Action Forum, nearly 100, who are already doing great things, but who also, I think, can draw some great inspiration from you. So the first question I want to ask you is actually driven by someone grabbed me when I came immediately out of the tent just after the great series of talks we had and said, Peter, congratulations for pulling together such a wonderful group of nonprofit leaders. They're really doing good work. And I said, actually, we do have some really great nonprofit leaders here at the Action Forum with us. But actually, a lot of the people here, and in fact, the majority, 65% of our fellows around the world, and there are 2,000 fellows around the world, are business people. So we know that John Crowley is a biotech executive. We know that Lana is in fact running a very important nonprofit organization in Gaza. We know that Réjane, up until recently, was an asset manager. What's your day job? Arturo?
Well, I'm currently managing two family businesses. On my father's side, I'm the vice president of Grupo La Sal, which is a group of companies in 4 industries: textiles, apparel, real estate, and logistics. Last year, on the other side of the family business, I assumed the chairman of the board position of a shoe retail and manufacturing operation in Central America. So I have my hands full, Peter.
So you're a guy with a lot of free time, right?
A lot of free time.
Great. Miriam, what's your day job?
I practice law, so I have a law firm, but I'm also a wife and a mother. So, I mean, it's about multitasking, trying to get things right.
Yeah. And Bill, just a heads up. I'm going to spend a little time with these two visiting first, and then I'm going to come to you last, okay? Saving the good for last two. So let's talk a little bit about the businesses you're involved in. You're a human rights lawyer. Tell us a bit about the past, because I happen to know a few of the things you've been involved with, right? So let's talk about, if you're willing, I know sometimes you don't like to, want to talk a little about pharmaceutical companies in Africa? Or not?
Yes, I defended the victims of the Pfizer clinical trial in 1996.
Tell us a bit about that. I'm not sure everybody knows about it.
Well, a clinical trial was carried out by Pfizer in Kano State, which is the state that I come from. Young babies, there was an epidemic, meningitis, and somebody saw that there was an epidemic, and they flew down, and they carried out clinical trials without the ethics committee approvals, and they left when it got so hot. Some doctors started questioning them. 10 years later, well, gradually we noticed that these children could not walk. Many of them were deaf. And so we sued Pfizer. But eventually, Pfizer approached our government, not just Pfizer, I think even the vice president and the ambassador, and they asked us to settle. So they had to settle, and the survivors and even the parents of the victims that died got some compensation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move and talk a bit about what moved each of you to come up with your project. And I want to start, before I turn to either of you, and actually just talk a bit about John Crowley and Lana and Réjane, who are not here to share their stories with you. John Crowley, how many here have ever seen a movie called Extraordinary Measures? Some of you have seen it. It's not often that we have a fellow who is portrayed on the screen by Brendan Fraser, with Harrison Ford at his side. John Crowley was in fact in this film, and the film was about the true story of John Crowley, whose 2 children were born with a very rare disease, Pompe's disease. And he quit his job and decided to start a company. And this is what the film actually captures. He wanted to start a biotech company that could develop, if not a cure, at the very least a treatment for this disease. But as he got further and further involved in that, and his children are alive and well now, many, many years later, and being treated as a result of John's efforts. But as he got more and more involved in this, he realized there were a lot of parents out there in similar situations to him who didn't have the ability to go find venture capital and start up a company to provide these diseases, to provide cures for these diseases. And so that's why he launched his project, Global Genes, as a way of bringing together people who may not have the means, but in a bit of a collective, to figure out if collectively they could mobilize the resources and garner attention that would allow them to solve these diseases. So that was his motivation in starting his project, Global Genes. Lana, we know, is living in a very difficult situation in Gaza. Had the opportunity to be her moderator during her seminars during the Middle East Leadership Initiative. And of course, many of her classmates are here with us tonight. And they know that Lana was frustrated by many things, but she realized that, as in lots of parts of the Middle East, and not just the Middle East, lots of parts of the world that are represented here, whether it be Central America or Africa, and in fact in parts of the United States, young people have very little hope. They're very disengaged and they feel very disenfranchised. And she knew that that was a recipe for disaster. And so she said, we've got to figure out how to engage young people in the governance of the Palestinian territories. We have to give them something to do. We have to give them a voice. And that's why she launched the local youth councils. Réjane, interestingly enough, was an economist and an asset manager. Her husband moved to work in a very remote, underserved part of the country and really was exposed to very, very difficult conditions. She was so moved by it that she said she would start up this incubator as a way of bringing some energy and some resources into a part of the country that were really being underserved. So their motivations were, in each case, they were moved by personal experiences, moved by things they saw to step up. So Arturo, let me turn to you. What moved you? You're a busy guy. You got I've been to your textile factories, and this is not 4 people sitting there with a sewing machine. It's hundreds of people there, in addition to your logistics company and everything else. What moved you to action?
See, just to provide a little bit of context, El Salvador lived a very ugly and devastating civil war from 1980 to 1992. That cost the lives of about 75,000 Salvadorans, which had a really devastating impact on the country. In addition to that, it also had a personal scar on me and my family. My grandfather had an attempted kidnapping, and he was shot 3 times in the process. Luckily, he survived. But that also forced the family to leave El Salvador for many years. So there's a very personal scar of that war on my family. In 2009, with the global financial crisis, we once again faced very difficult challenges. And one of those challenges was the rise of systemic violence and crime brought about specifically by gangs and gang activity.
By the way, I live in Northern Virginia, where the Salvadoran gangs are very active as well.
They're global now, yeah. And that basically peaked at a murder rate of 71 per 100,000 inhabitants, which at that moment in time was the second highest murder rate in the world. So that really shook me up and really made me reflect on how did El Salvador achieve one of the highest murder rates in the world? What did we do wrong as a country, as a society, to get there? And more importantly, what can I do to have an impact on this issue and really change that reality for the country and specifically for the youth who don't have those opportunities? So that's really what was behind creating Proyecto País in 2009, Peter.
How have the gangs reacted to you coming in and doing things like this?
At the beginning, they definitely saw us as threats because we were kind of doing a counter effort to what they were doing. And they were also targeting the youngest children and youth because they were under the radar of the authorities, so they couldn't arrest them. So strategically, they were focusing on that segment of the population. At first, we were definitely a risk, and I think with time, they've realized that that life really doesn't lead to anything. Many of them are already involved to the point where they can't get out, but some of them now are saying, you know what, I don't want this kind of life for my kids and their future. So we actually have, surprisingly, interest and support in getting the younger
You've won some of them over.
Correct.
Interesting. Mariam, tell me about what moved you to do what you're doing. You're busy as a human rights lawyer. I could ask you a few more questions about things you've done, but I'm not going to. Let's focus on what moved you to do what you're doing now.
Well, for years I've been involved in human rights work, and I used to serve on many boards, but I felt it was ad hoc, and it was completely, I didn't feel I was making the impact. And then I came for the executive seminar here, and I saw so many people doing so much, you know. And around me at home, I have, it's so obvious. I have cousins who never went to school and are now dependent on me. And it was clear to me that it was just education that made the difference. So I thought maybe, my sister is here, we thought of setting up something after our father. Well, my father died when I was 6, but he used to write, and he was seen as an advocate for women from within the Islamic faith. And it was very inspiring that I could read some of the things he said about Islam and women. And I felt that that we needed to do something to emulate him. So Isa Wali is his name. And so we named it after him. And interestingly, Pfizer paid the case from Pfizer. I got paid. And I put the money, I was looking for money. That's how I started. It's the money from the Pfizer case that I used to start Isa Wali Empowerment Initiative.
So there is justice.
Yes, there is.
There is justice. Now, you're working in northern Nigeria.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, you had an action workshop last year at the Action Forum, right? And wasn't it talking about how difficult it was to break through the culture of men who didn't want you working with the women in northern Nigeria? Maybe I have that wrong, but isn't that the case culturally?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think it's not just in rural areas. I think men have a problem when the woman earns more than they do. And, and you need to know how to manage the ego. So it's something that I see everywhere. And you just need to counsel the women when
how to manage the men.
Yes. We're educating the women, and they are getting better. They're getting very aware of their rights. They're earning more than their husbands. So that is a new challenge that we need to address, and we're trying to address.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And you are working in a part of the country, as we heard in Bryn's introduction, where Boko Haram is active. Tell the group here, what is Boko Haram, and how active are they?
They're an extremist group that claims Islam as the basis for their activities, their violence, but there is I see nothing in Islam in what they do. And Boko Haram means essentially Western education is sin. So they've tried to stop people from going to school. They've they've bombed so many places. Now they're recruiting girls as female suicide bombers. Even today they bombed a school in Kano, but they've bombed security agents, the buildings. They've kidnapped girls in schools. They've slaughtered boys in schools. But I think part of the problem is we were not prepared as a government for this kind of terrorist activities. So it appears to have, they're escalating the insurgency in different parts of the north especially. And for some parents, they won't even let their children go to school now because they feel that it's not secure. They'd rather have a child that is not educated, but at least the child is alive. So it's a really serious problem, because what it portends for us is, in years to come, we're going to have we're going to have leaders who have no education. We're going to have youth who have no education. So this is what we need to battle. This is what we're confronting every day. And
are they directly getting in the way of your project?
Not really, but we need to, there's fear. There's fear because people are very wary of going to certain places. But I think it's important to have the security, the awareness of how to respond to these kind of concerns. The Chibok girls, they went into the vicinity and set off bombs in the town, and then went in military uniforms to the girls' hostel and said to them, "We are the Nigerian army. We've come to save you because Boko Haram is operating in town." And they came with uniforms, and they had military trucks that were in military colors. And the girls just followed them, 279 of them. And it was when they were on their way into the forest that some of them began to realize that they had been abducted. And they started, some jumped, some escaped when they got there. But unfortunately, the majority of them are still there. Now, if they had been aware of how to react, to such things, what to look out for, they wouldn't have followed them so sheepishly without responding. So we're trying to get the children to be aware of what their surroundings, people that come in that they don't know, not to give in so easily to them, and the alert signals for danger and all of that, because you need to know how to react.
Got you.
Because a lot of these things are just being introduced in our environment. We never knew about terrorism in our past.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you're dealing with it. So as you look at your project now, to help some people in the audience who are grappling with this, what do you know now that you wish you'd known at the beginning of your project? Arturo?
Well, for one, the amount of time and work it takes to get these projects to where it is today, in my case of Proyecto País. But I think more importantly, how gratifying and the personal growth that it's brought to my life. I think that's been something that I would have loved to have been able to see now before I gotten into this adventure.
Oh, man. How about you, Miriam? What do you wish you'd known before you got into this?
Well, as I said earlier, I didn't anticipate that we would have challenges with the husbands down the road. But we're addressing that.
You've addressed that?
Yes, we're in the process of addressing that. But apart from that, it's been a very fulfilling journey, and every day, I'm thankful that we can do what we're doing. It's been quite expensive, but we're on top of things, or we're trying to be on top of things, and we have a lot of collaboration. Government now understands what we're doing, and they're helping us with, we get their teachers to come in because we're not experts, we're not educationists, we're not health, but so we go in and we get some of the curricula and use it in the schools. And it's been a very good partnership.
Terrific.
And then looking at these women, we have women who teaching them how to hold pencils, they're writing short stories now.
Amazing.
So it's been a very fulfilling journey.
I'm going to be mindful of everyone's time. I'm going to shift gears to Bill Bynum here, who's been sitting here so quietly and patiently. Bill.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Why don't you remind everybody in the room what Hope Credit Union's all about and what led you to start it up?
I want to start by saying be careful, because your project may become your full-time job. and that was certainly the case with me.
I can relate.
I started a credit union not long after I moved to Jackson. I moved to Jackson, Mississippi to run a community development organization supporting businesses in the Delta, which is a very impoverished part of the United States. And when I joined a church in Jackson, the pastor said that he'd been trying to start a credit union. He asked me about my background. I'd been involved with credit unions in North Carolina. And he said, that's going to be your ministry. We're going to start a credit union. I said, yes, sir, we're going to do it. And so sure enough, we chartered the first credit union to be chartered in Mississippi in many years. And we got out of the gate fast and ran out of gas. A lot of enthusiasm, but not the capacity using volunteers to do what we needed to do. When you and I were much less gray, when we were in our Henry Crown Fellows class, I was really challenged to think about how I could take that credit union and give it stability. We talked about scale, grow it and make it much more impactful in the community. We started it to try to provide an alternative to predatory lenders, payday check cashers, pawn shops that were preying upon the most vulnerable people in the community around the church. Well, my day job, we found that there was a lot more demand for business capital than we had donors to support. The credit union needed professional management, and so we merged. And so when we were Crown Fellows, the credit union had about
We're always Crown Fellows.
Well, when we were
Laureates, yes.
Very young Crown Fellows. The credit union was about 800 members and $120,000 in assets. Well, being inspired, being mentored, being challenged by the folks in this room, we're now at 29,000 members and $200 million.
And what was the number I saw in terms of billions of dollars that have been leveraged by your credit union?
We were very active, as Walter mentioned, on the Gulf Coast after Hurricane Katrina. We were able to provide counseling and financial services to people that helped over 10,000 families access $600 million in resources to rebuild their homes and businesses. We've been able to partner with and leverage banks and government programs over the years and target those funds into communities that were being left behind. And in the 20 years that we've been operating, we've generated over $2 billion in financing and assisted over 500,000 people.
Fantastic. Congratulations. So, Bill, what are you won this award, this fantastic award, and when Bill came up on the screen before and the video was playing, I went over and whispered to him, "Are you Barry White?" So besides the recording contract that you've won, what has it meant to you to win the John P. McNulty Award?
Well, as I said, just the exposure, the increased awareness. Aspen Institute has a great reputation across this country for pulling together people who make a difference. And we've been able to multiply the number of people who know about our work, work with policymakers who have now take us, I think, a little bit more serious. When you talk about the McNulty Prize, it's and you think about the other laureates, and you know that this is something that is significant. You know that it's a global recognition, and I think that it's opened doors and conversations that we wouldn't have had access to before. As I said, the $100,000 gift is very important to us. We are in the middle of a capital campaign to raise $20 million to double the number of people in places that we serve in bank deserts across the Mid-South. We've been able to have conversations with people, I think, that take us a little bit more seriously. Just a couple of weeks ago at the Clinton Global Initiative, President Clinton cited hope as emblematic of what people could be doing to lift up people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. And so those kinds of acknowledgments mean a great deal to a nonprofit that has to sing for a supper, that has to raise capital. We can't raise stock like a bank can. We have to raise charitable support, and that's not easy in an area of the country that is the most poor, most persistently impoverished region in the United States.
Terrific. So I want to give time for a few questions from the audience, but before I do, one last thing from each of you. So when I bump into you a year from now, what's going to be the headline out of your project? Arturo?
Well, I don't know if a year's time, Peter, but I think, if I look even farther down, I would actually like for Proyecto País to evolve to the point where we're not focusing really on crime prevention and focusing a lot more on youth development and education and helping these kids really aspire to and achieve upward social economic mobility. So my dream is really for Proyecto País not to exist as it does today, and that we can support them at a different phase of their lives with different opportunities and challenges ahead of them, and not crime and violence.
Terrific. Mariam, what'll be the headline a year from now?
Well, hopefully that we can keep girls in school. Where IWay works, maybe in a set of 350 girls, about 25 complete because they leave to get married. So I want to really improve that number. I want mothers to understand how valuable education is. So this is why it's so important for the adolescent mothers to be educated. So just to have women that are financially independent, that are self-confident, that are able to manage their husband's egos. Yeah.
Why are you looking at me? You've been talking to Denise?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you. To just have happier people around me, yeah. That's just it.
Bill, what's the headline going to be a year from now?
I'm terribly excited about the numbers of people that we've been able to help directly, but I know that we're dropping the bucket relative to the need, and not just in the Mid-South, but there are bank deserts emerging across the country. 1,800.
What's a bank desert?
Bank deserts are communities that are being abandoned by banks. They have one or no bank branches. In my region, 1,679 zip codes. There's 1,679 zip codes. 1,000 of them have one or no branches. So these, since the recession, 1,800 bank branches have closed across the country, 93% in low-income census tracts. We cannot allow low-income communities we cannot allow financial services to be an extraction industry in low-income communities. That's just not acceptable. And so, Secretary Albright gave us a shout out at a meeting, a government affairs meeting of credit unions. And credit unions and banks need to step up and invest in the communities where they're extracting record profits. And so I hope the headline is that we've eradicated bank deserts in the United States, and that we've influenced policies that stop the abusive practices that allow people to be charged predatory rates and attack those who are most vulnerable in society.
Thank you. Let me just see, do we have any questions in the audience, especially among people who are grappling with their own particular projects and are wondering about things you've been able to do and how you've been able to do them? Any questions at all out here? Going once? There we go. Jason?
Not really a question for me, but for Arturo, very, very powerful story. Amazing, actually. But have you thought about, in a way, thinking bigger? Maybe you're already doing it, but how can you deploy what you're doing globally? Gang violence has touched families in many countries, and when you, as you accomplish, it's sort of, to me, I'm thinking it takes away excuses from everybody else. How, as you accomplish the great things that you're doing, how can every other country do the same?
It's a great question. Thank you. And it is something that we have talked about. My family foundation actually has a different project, which is more focused on high-quality education for English, computing, and values. And that's also a project that is focusing on a challenge that we have throughout Central America and probably throughout different countries in the world. In that particular project, we have been able to develop a social franchise, to your point, where we've been able to standardize the operator manuals, the academic manuals, and basically present the opportunity to different foundations, businessmen, individuals who want to replicate the program in different countries. And through that franchise, social franchise model, we actually have grown to 2 centers additionally in Panama. This year, we're looking at Nicaragua, and hopefully soon we'll be looking at other countries like Honduras and the rest of the countries in Central America. And America, definitely. But it's a good challenge, and I think it's something that we have a best practice in a different project that we hopefully will be able to replicate in Proyecto País.
And it's really important, I think, to say that one of the reasons we have events like this is that we're hoping that some of the ideas that we're able to showcase through the John P. McNulty Award, that they'll ignite ideas in other people. And all of our projects that we carry out don't have to be something new. If something's working, figure out how to replicate it. I think the Central America Leadership Initiative has been very good, especially good, I think, in terms of picking up ideas in one country, saying it's working here, let's take it throughout the region, and it's been terrific to watch. Any other questions out in the audience at all? Yes, Jean-Claude. It makes me nervous when you do.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the questions, Peter, and the panelists. You've helped me quite a bit. But this is my question. It seems to me that the work you've done with your day job and your project geographically sort of equal. So my challenge is that I live in the U.S., I have a day job in the U.S., but I want to do a project in my country of birth, which is Haiti. And I'm struggling to figure out how to actually do that with the travel and everything else. Any suggestions?
Anyone want to take that one?
I'll take it in the sense that I feel your pain. It's not easy. I also struggle a lot on a personal leadership level, and how do I divide my time and how do I balance my time between all my priorities and the 2 social investment initiatives that we manage, the family businesses and a young family. Jimena and I have a 9-month-old son. So I don't know if I have a solution for you, but what I try to do is really focus on what are my priorities and balancing my time according to that, because it's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day to the point where you really feel unproductive and you get frustrated. So I think having a big picture vision of what your priorities are in life, I think that north helps a lot in that struggle.
Good. Anything you want to add?
Well, I would say that you maybe should find somebody that has your passion and very competent, but it's very critical that the passion is shared, and put that person there, but monitor from here and go when you can. Mistakes will be made, but mistakes are opportunities for you to do better. So it's just about continuing to do what you need to do. I live in Abuja, but my project is in Kano. It's about an hour's 40 minutes flight from where I live. We're able to work together, and I'm able to supervise what's done because I have a lot of faith in the lady that's actually doing the day-to-day. I go there as often as I can, and every evening we have a very competent board of directors, and they also take an interest. So we've set up a structure that is able to ensure that we have an understanding of what is going on, and we're able to do what needs to be done every time anything arises. We have our board meetings at least 4 times a year, and then we go into the communities. We work outside Kano, even though the headquarters is in Kano. We work far away because that's where the interventions are the most needed. And the further the town or the village is from the town, the less development there is. So I think, and it's also important to have volunteers, but I would say that passion is the key thing to look for.
Don't just hire anybody.
Yeah.
Bill, any advice?
Only that we had a great conversation this morning in one of our sessions, and one of the things I took away from it was you really got to be true to yourself. What's important to you, and ultimately I think that'll lead you in the right direction. I never thought, if someone had told me that I'd be in Mississippi 3 months before I moved there, I'd have asked to take their temperature. I just never saw myself moving. I moved there from North Carolina, and I said I'd give myself 3 to 5 years. 20 years later, I'm there, and I can't think of anything else that would be more rewarding than what I'm doing now.
Excellent. Well, I think, first of all, Anne, I want to thank you again for this opportunity to interview these fantastic laureates at last year's winner in Bill Bynum. I want to wish you all the best of luck. In fact, there are no losers and winners here. You're all winners, and we're so appreciative as well as inspired by everything you're doing. For those of you who are anxious to find out who the winner will be, join us in New York City on November 12th. Is that right? When we'll be announcing the winner of this year's John P. McNulty Prize. Bill Bynum will be there again, of course, as will many of our laureates and winners, and you'll get a chance to speak with them. But thank you all very much, and thanks for a very inspiring meeting. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Thank you.